I've always wanted to do that. It's very difficult to do that on Zoom. Welcome back, trustees. It's great to see you. And welcome to our affiliates, the BPL Fund, Leventhal Map Center, and the associates. Welcome all. It's wonderful to be here today together. Once again, what, David, it's been
So the last in-person board meeting, I believe, was January of 2020. So we're almost at 3 years since we met fully in person.
So it's wonderful to be here in our beloved library. And, one of the things is, if you go to the library in the morning, if you're standing out there at 10, I see people lined up waiting to get in. And that really, really, really warms my heart. I want to thank all the librarians, all of the folks in operations, and a special shout out to the patrons and, of course, the central staff. Today, I'm going to begin by reading our land acknowledgement and our commitment to diversity before introducing our two new trustees. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library's Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem, providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people, and is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement so that they take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. So my first order of business is to welcome our two new trustees. And Mayor Wu has done an outstanding job. I think part of her mantra is you give a busy person more work and you invite them to join the board. Their detailed bios are on the website, but when I introduce them, I'd like them to say a little bit about themselves and also, why did you say yes? So to being on this board. So Dr. Lynn Perry Wooten is the president of Simmons College. She's the 9th president and the first African-American. And whenever I bump into Simmons students, the first thing they say is, oh, I saw the president. She's so wonderful. So please, Dr. Wooten.
Thank you for this honor. I am president of Simmons University, and one of the reasons why I said yes is we have in the state the only library science degree program and are so committed to developing and training and educating the next generation of librarians and people who data analysis. But just as important, I grew up in Philadelphia, which I think is a sister city to Boston. And if there's one institution beyond education that changed my life, it's always been the library. And throughout my career, the first thing I do in every city is get a library card. And they're not only places for learning, they're places for gathering, they're places where I think most people feel like they belong. So thank you, Boston Public Library, for advancing equity too.
Thank you. Jose Masso, the fourth?
The third.
The third is a cultural bridge builder. He consults in the area of policy, diversity, and inclusion. And he's the host and producer of Consalsa, which makes us all dance late at night on WBUR. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Good morning, everyone. For me, it's an honor. It's really a privilege to be amongst all of you, to serve the city, to serve the residents of this great community that we have. I started my career here in Boston, right down the street at Copley Square High School, which is now the Snowden International School on the corner of Dartmouth and Newbury, as a bilingual teacher. Back in 1973, I've been living in the city of Boston for 50 years. My wife and I have a home in Hyde Park and a small little Yorkshire Terrier whose name is Jet, and I have children as well. I am Jose Cimaso III, named after my father. My brother, who's older than me, is the second. And I've had the honor of being a public servant both in the state, the city, and the federal government. I just retired from Massport, where I was the director of policy after 14 years. And I was enjoying that life of retirement where I'm writing 3 books and doing all my radio stuff and consulting when Mayor Wu asked if I would join the board. And I said, why not? Of course, I love libraries. I would pass by this every single day on the way to work when I lived in the South End. And libraries are very important for me. I think they're a gathering place for all communities to enjoy what libraries have to offer as a wraparound to who we are as residents of this great city. And so therefore, my hope is that I can contribute in some way or another to make that community feel much more part of who we are as the Boston Public Library. Thank you so much.
And welcome to you. You have joined the most, you can see for yourself, the most diverse board in Boston, which is a testament to the vision that both of our mayors have had, from Mayor Walsh to clearly Mayor Wu. And also we represent the people of Boston. So that is just a stellar accomplishment. And I see our welcome, welcome. So now you can really see how diverse we are. So our next order of business is a review and approval of the minutes from May 24th. Yes? Oh, roll call. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. I'd also remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded via Zoom. And if any member of the public wants to sign up for chat, the members on Zoom can do so under the chat feature by 9 a.m. Anyone in the audience, there's a sign up until 9 a.m. that you can sign up for, and we'll take you in the order that we will receive. So roll call. Arana Ortiz?
Here.
Asim?
Here.
Here. Berman?
Here.
Bradley?
Here.
Cheryl Cronin is not able to attend. Josina Fori?
Here.
Douglas?
Here.
Mr. Hyler is running late. Mr. Hawkins is not able to attend. Malcolm?
Here.
Rush?
Here.
Tyler?
Here.
Westra?
Here.
And Wooten.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Good, thank you. And now the review and approval, right, Pamela?
Yeah.
Thank you. Of the minutes from May 24th. You've all received the minutes. May I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Evelyn. Second?
Second.
Thank you. A motion to approve the May 24th minutes has been seconded. Any discussion? A vote?
If I may suggest, I think now that we're in person, we can do it as a slate. We just have to ask if there's any opposed or.
So any discussion, any opposed?
No.
All in favor? You want to signal by hand raise? Okay, raise your hand. So moved. Unanimous. Thank you. So to continue, the library prospers and has a broad reach and affinity because we have strong relationships with our affiliates. And I'm going to introduce 2 affiliate board members. I'm going to invite Alice Lee to come and join us on the podium. And, you know, the associates are committed to the conservation of all of our priceless items.
Correct.
So it's no surprise that we have a close relationship with the associates. Your former chair, Peter Brown, was just such a great guy. And we now have that possibility and really look forward to deepening our relationship with our new board chair, Alice Lee. Her influence, her wisdom, her compassion, and her generosity are well known throughout the city. And she's been donating that energy, not just in Boston, but also abroad. So welcome, Alice.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to be here, and I have to thank you, Priscilla and David, for making time for me to introduce myself. I don't know most of the board trustees, but I know some of them, and I'm really excited to see all of you. Just by way of background, I'm going to hit some of the big snippets in my life so that you get a sense of what I know and, more importantly, what I don't know. I am a former bank officer at the old First National Bank of Boston. I was trained in accounting, finance, and international finance. I'm the first chief of staff to our former mayor, Thomas Menino. In terms of public service, I also have extensive board service on both a corporate board as well as nonprofit boards. Some of you may remember my beloved Jack Cogan. I served on the Pioneer Fund with him. And some of the boards that I've served on, the Greater Boston YMCA, Boston Medical Center, where I'm currently emeritus after 17 years of service, and chaired both finance and the Trustee Patient Care Committee, and served as vice chair. Former Governor Deval Patrick appointed me to the board of the University of Massachusetts system. So I served there. I served there for him. I've also served at the Boston Children's Museum back in the days when my girls were young. It was one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. You see, it still brings joy to me. I've served at Mother Caroline Academy. I'm currently on the board of the Pine Street Inn, and I co-chair the DEI committee and sit on governance. I'm at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, where I also sit on governance. I'm on the Hestia Fund, which is a women's giving fund that provides funding to educational institutions. Those are some of my current places. I'm an incredibly proud resident of the city of Boston, and actually got here in 13 minutes, which I thought I was cutting it short, but I got here. And as you all know, I am the third chairperson of the Associates of the Boston Public Library. And now just the other thing I will say is that in general, my life's work has been centered around the health and well-being, education, enrichment of all people. And it's had an emphasis on creating equity for marginalized communities. That has been my work. And which is how I see my nonprofit participations. For those of you who are new to the BPL board, you may not know that the Associates of the Boston Public Library is an independent 501c3. We are so honored and grateful that our mission is to be in service to this library, one of the strongest libraries in the country, and one of only two public libraries that are noted as research libraries. I think we all like to be with the best, and we're clearly at the best. So we're 501c3. We are actually writing our very first mission statement, and I look forward to sharing that with all of you in a couple of months. The associates want to congratulate all of you, and I personally want to congratulate all of you on the completion of the rare books rooms and the stacks and all of the equipment and people who are preserving some of your most treasured documents and items. It's really fabulous. It's taken 7 years and it was well worth it. So thank you for that. And last, I want to say that we, the associates, have an event that's happening on November 2nd. It's a one-man play on the life of Thomas Paine. You will recall that he's the English-born American political activist, and he's author of Common Sense and the American Crisis. And I want to personally invite you to all of that. And Pamela already has an invitation that she'll be emailing to all of you. We really hope you can come and see what some of our work is. And we're proud that our work buttresses yours. Right now, we fund 9 staff of the library, and it is an honor to be an active part of the work of the library. So thank you very much. And we look forward, we all look forward, but I especially look forward to working with this board in the years to come. So thank you.
I know that David was there at the rare book, so let him welcome you as well, Alex.
Thank you, Alice. We look forward very much to working with the associates, continue working with you. And I know Louisa Stevens, Executive Director, is here today. And we'll continue to build a strong relationship as we go forward. I'll have a few notes about the opening of special collections and rare books in my report a little bit later. And I think it's truly a mark of this phase of the library's existence that we have strengthened our relationships with all of the three extended family members, and we'll introduce Charlie, I think, next. But equally, the third member of the extended family, our primary fundraising partner, the Boston Public Library Fund, which Jeff Hawkins, Trustee Hawkins, chairs the board of as well. So strengthening all three together is really, I think, the ideal hallmark of our extended relationships here.
Thank you. We both have been using the term that it takes a village. Joe Berman, our trustee Joe Berman, is also a member of the associates, and he serves on the Special Collections Committee. So we have a close tie. We were going to have, and Pamela had arranged for our affiliate, Charlie Cooney, Dr. Charlie Cooney, who's an MIT professor, to Zoom in. He's in Spain, but at this very moment, given the time change, he's doing a keynote address. So Charlie Cooney is a member. He's the new board affiliate chair for the Leventhal Map Center. And you may remember that the previous board chair, Alan Leventhal, is now our ambassador to Denmark, ambassador to Denmark. And Charlie is in that role. He is an extraordinary scientist, and we can thank him really for our health, because he's established the principles for high-end manufacturing. So, you know, during COVID, when everything got sped up, it's probably and possibly because of the work of Charlie Cooney. And he also loves maps. So we welcome him, and he's going to become a member of our Special Collections Committee. Anything else? All right, so we'll welcome Charlie Cooney. The next item of business here is to think about, you know, given that this is our first meeting, and if you're in business, you often start off with a launch, right? What's the launch? What's the theme for 2023, 2022, 2023? And I had the pleasure of talking to all of the trustees. So some of the themes that came out of there were that we need to engage, we need to amplify, and we need to partner. But the way that we do that is really as ambassadors of the library. You know, we have a very specific fiduciary role regarding the management and strategic direction of the library. And our formal role is to act as agents of the public trust governing the library. However, the way that we do that, the way that we live that, the way that we express that, the way that we execute that is really our individual day-to-day action. Acting, we're really the ambassadors. We're the cultural interpreters of the library. We're the people who feel so passionate about the library that we can't help but tell people about the programs and invite them to come and to see. So these ambassadors and our role as ambassadors is something that we do. As I said, I mean, we can't help but do it. So it's not like extra work. And I'm going to invite you to, you know, to think about what that means and like that. The engagement piece, we have a very specific committee that looks at engagement, but each of us is engaged. I'm going to jump ahead and say that Linda Dorsina Forey is going to chair our engagement committee. So I want her to talk just a little bit and then we'll get into a discussion. Linda is going to chair and Jose Masso is going to be the vice chair of that committee. So
Thank you, Chairwoman. I will be brief. Good morning, everyone. It is great to be here in this incredible space, but to be on this incredible board as we focus on engagement in terms of this committee that started last year. The inaugural, it was chaired by Joyce Lenahan, who transitioned off the board. And so the chairwoman and David asked me to lead. And I'm really excited because for us and with Jose as my vice chair, but also the committee members, and you're going to see the list shortly. But I'll say that we have an opportunity working collaboratively with this team under David's leadership and the great work that the staff has been doing out of our 24 branches is how do we make sure that communities feel connected, right? Because that's what it's about. We have these incredible locations in all of our neighborhoods, and we want people to feel and know that this is the place that we want them to come in and to be active and to do activities. So we're going to be working together. I'll keep it short. We have a lot of work to do. And so we're going to count on everyone on this board, whether you're on the committee or not, you're going to be participating and we're going to be working collaboratively, no doubt, with the team here, because there are things you're already doing. And as the chairwoman said, as ambassadors, how do we amplify it? Right. I know at the last meeting that happened with engagement, Michael had done a presentation. I was looking at the minutes, you know, the work that's happening with public housing. Right. So BPL is in public housing now. How do we amplify that? Especially focusing on the young people who are there, the adults, right, who may need support, whether it's GED. How do we make the connection points really to lift everyone up together? So thank you.
I'm glad that you mentioned the word, you already segued into amplify. So this is, again, not more work. When you, I don't know whether you've had the experience, but I think that when I talk to people that you have, when you said, well, do you know that you can get a laptop computer from the library? And people say, what? You got to be kidding me. And you say, do you know about the fact that we have an ESL choir that learned English by singing over Zoom during the pandemic, and they performed here at the library? People say, what, a choir? The library has a choir? So I don't know, you've always heard David and the staff saying that books are just the beginning of the library. And the fact that we can amplify and engage and partner is the whole purpose of that is for people, when you meet people, we'll know that we've been successful when people say, oh yeah, I knew about that. I tried that. I recommended this individual to the library. My friends are at the library. So I had a meeting with Jose Masso the fourth.
It's actually not the fourth. He's just Jose Masso.
Jose Masso, who we report to, our secretariat, our library reports into. And one of the things that he kept saying is, you know, his goal is to see the branches as preferred destinations, and that's part of what our metric can possibly be. Do people see the Chinatown? Do they see the West End? Do they see the Mattapan? Is this the place that they go to live their dreams, their aspirations, to realize that? So I just want to know from the trustees, what do you think of this idea? How do we put it into being? What's missing? Period. Yeah, sure.
Good morning, everyone. I think that's a wonderful idea. The library just has so much to offer. There's so many different components of what actually happens in the ecosystem at each one of our different libraries that it makes sense to see them as destination sites. I mean, you can, you know, if you're a parent, you can have your children engage in extracurricular activities. If you're a senior, you can engage at the Roxbury branch in cooking classes. There's just so many different components that go into that destination word. So I like it, and I want to figure out what we can do to be supportive of that initiative.
Thank you. Rep. Tyler?
If I may, good morning, everyone. I would echo that. I think this is a fantastic idea. And to me, the real key thing is to think about how we can communicate better the amazing offerings that we have at the library. Because it does feel like, to your point, Priscilla, people just aren't necessarily aware of what they can access and how the things the library offers can make a real difference.
Thank you, Trustee Restra.
I definitely agree. I think each of us need to have the message of number one, the library's books are just the beginning. There's so much more. And part of really manifesting that beginning is not only knowing the central library, but using the branches as destinations. And so social media, ambassador, and talking points would be great for me.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, if I may, last year I had the opportunity of engaging with a number of libraries, presenting an introduction to the history of Afro-Latin music. As Chairwoman Douglas said, for the last 47 years, I've been doing a radio program at National Public Radio con Salsa every weekend. And visiting the libraries that I spent some time at to do these presentations, which by the way, were not in person, obviously because of COVID, it gave me a sense of those libraries and what role they play in those specific communities. I'm speaking about East Boston, Roxbury, Rosendale, Hyde Park, and thinking that part of now my charge is, of course, seeing how we amplify that engagement that includes everyone being able to come to the library and understand that there's something for them, right? Regardless what it is. And you're right, it doesn't just start with the books. It does start with the books, that's the hook, but there's so many other things. I use the word wraparound. I think that what the libraries really present to this city is the opportunity that every branch would become the go-to place where you get that wraparound service from the moment you walk in, regardless of what the item might be. And I think the amplification part, for me, that's so like a ring to my finger in the sense of that's what I do, right? Because I communicate via radio and other forms. And I think seeing the library in the communities outside of the library, for instance, I hosted a festival in East Boston, Latin Music Festival, and the library in East Boston was there. They were outside of the library, part of the engagement. They had a booth. They were engaging with the community was engaging with them. They did it in a bilingual format. So therefore the Latino community that was there was able to engage with them. And that to me is part of what I think you are asking us to be part of, right? How do we make it so that the people feel that the library is very much part of their community and that the library itself is part of the community by going out to where they are and where the places are. So I think from my perspective, seeing this group of people, each one of you has a persona out in the community that has certain panache, if you will. You have a certain flavor of who you are and what you represent. And therefore, I think the engagement piece is one of the things that's going to be exciting as we go forward. And I'm looking forward to working with Linda on this whole piece. And then the amplification piece, count on me as trying to be part of that as well. And then the partnerships, I use the example of that festival that was put together by Zoomix, which is an East Boston community. And that was, again, an opportunity for a community-based organization to partner with one of our branches. So I'm excited about this. I hope that all of us, take advantage of where we are to be able to just become the #1 ambassadors for BPL. At least count on me. And I'm going to have this in my pocket every time I go out. So therefore, I can say so. Thank you.
Thank you, host. You're going to talk, I'm not going to talk about this. Jump again, please.
Sure. And I've said this to a few of you, I think, in the past, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but over the past year, just for the fortuity of construction schedules, I had the opportunity to attend several ribbon cuttings for branches, I think in Roslindale and Adams Street and one other one. And these are such wonderful events because they take place at the branches, the community is invited, and the energy and enthusiasm of families and seniors and all members of the community to be there for the celebration of the ribbon cutting and the reopening of their local branch is such a wonderful event. And it shows me how important the branches are. I mean, here in Boston, I don't know if any other city has the extensive reach that we have into pretty much every neighborhood. And it really hit home when I watched and attended the ribbon cuttings, and the mayor was there, and everybody, there's free ice cream, and it was just such a wonderful event. And it really brought home to me the central role that branch libraries play in their individual neighborhoods, because Boston is, of course, a city of neighborhoods. And I'm hopeful, as we talk about the services that the libraries provide, that we don't forget about the books, that by reaching out to the community, especially with young people, that we remind them that there are books here to read, and we can promote literacy and promoting a love of reading and a love of learning. And I think, there's no better place to do that than a public library.
Thank you, trustee Berman.
Chairwoman Douglas, may I add one thing? The pandemic has disrupted most industries. And we have to not only think about in-person engagement, but we have to think about virtual engagement too, and hybrid offerings as we create this service. So that's going to be very important as we move forward.
And I think we're going to hear a little bit about the, our digital commonwealth and the reach that we have. And, certainly the number of BPL cards went up over the pandemic. So again, I won't step on David's report, but to kind of wrap I know, anyone else have? The thing about this being an ambassador, when we go out, kind of the metric, how will we know that we've succeeded? How will we know that we've engaged people, whether we've amplified the programs? Well, we'll be able to tell from our own individual circles. The professions, like if we go to a professional meeting, are they reaching out to Emily here to say, hey, we want to hold a meeting at the library. We want to use the facilities at the library. That's an easy one to do. And, to have it be, again, a destination, to have the library be that. I know, and you've heard me share with you the fact that, I went to the library, I read from one end to the other, and my whole life was transformed by going. I was in the country on a pig farm, but I traveled to the moon and back and to all these foreign lands by the books that I read. So I know that people's dreams, their ambitions, their passions are all fueled by being in the library. So thank you. And we're not Alan Leventhal, the ambassador, but we are ambassadors, and you're all now ambassadors, official ambassadors of the Boston Public Library. So thank you.
So I have a quick question. You mentioned access to computers or laptops. What are the specifics of that? People come in and they can't own them. They just take them out like they would a book, or what?
So we launched a program called long-term digital lending, which can involve a hotspot and a Chromebook. This was a federal grant that we, in collaboration with the city, were able to obtain, and initially targeted the outreach to those in public housing in the city of Boston as being those most affected by the digital equity gap in Boston. The Mayor Wu just released a report on the status of digital equity as it stands today. So this is an ongoing program and relationship that we will continue to build on. We have the ability to service with the grant several thousand instances of laptops and hotspots or routers. It's long-term lending. So, basically eligible patrons are asserting that they have a need, that they could not gain access to this kind of access through other means. And it's like a long-term loan of a book. You can renew a book, so you can renew participation in this program. Technically, ownership remains with the library, but technology changes pretty quickly. So by the time those renewals have passed, the life of the technology itself may have expired. So it was a very creative way to get this program and get what is essential to close the digital equity gap. You need technology, you need access, and you need skills. Any one of those three alone does not solve the problem. And through this program at the library, in combination with other city agencies and the Boston Housing Authority in particular, we are providing a device, we're providing connectivity, and our library staff stand ready to assist in terms of skills development for these patrons.
Thank you. So let's move on to the next area, which is the update on the committee structure. And I'm just going to call out the new membership and also the new members of the committees, and then also the new mandate or charge for some of the committees. So the first one you see is special collections, and as described, Charlie Cooney will join that committee. And our own Beth Prindle, please come down, is going to become a full member of the committee. And we're just thrilled that, you know, Beth has been at the helm. She and Laura worked so hard on the rare books. And Beth around town is now a respected and yes, and visible special collections expert. And I'm delighted that you'll join the committee and as a peer. So welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much. And good morning, trustees. I'm Beth Brindle, Head of Special Collections. A little bit about me. I'm a former public high school teacher, and I've been at BPL since 2004 in a variety of roles. And I'm entering my 8th year heading Special Collections. During that time, we've seen enormous transformation and growth in our staffing and expertise, our collection services, and our stewardship. And that's thanks in large part to the support of the trustees and the city and our affiliate groups. We celebrated the newly renovated and reopened Special Collections, as you've heard, department at a ribbon cutting last month. And it was wonderful to see so many of the trustees there celebrating with us and Mayor Wu and so many of the people who helped make it happen. And we're thrilled to be welcoming researchers now and the Simply Curious into the space. And I'm excited to be participating as a member of the Special Collections Committee. I'm very grateful for the appointment and working with that entire team to continue to build that engagement and discovery with our special collections across even wider communities. So thank you so much again for the appointment and for your enduring support of our work.
Also joining the Special Collections Committee will be Elliot Davis. Elliot Davis is an expert in American arts, especially prints. She served as director and CEO of the Norton Museum of Art, which is based in West Palm Beach. It was Florida's largest museum and the leading arts and cultural museum in the Southeast. Her roots, though, are close to home. She was at the MFA, where she was the chair, John Moore's Cabot Chair of the 16,000 piece Art of the Americas collection at the MFA. And she's a curator of drawing and prints at the American Print Paintings at the Met in New York. So she's not here today, but you'll get a chance to meet her, and she'll be a great addition to that committee. As you know, Ben Bradley is the chair of that committee with Matthew Dames. So that's our special collections. Community engagement, you already heard, Linda is going to chair, and Jose. Governance and development, Perry Wooten will join that committee. And let me see, where's my notes here? The Fellows Athenaeum Trust, which Evelyn chairs, remains the same. Finance remains the same. You need more people? Thank you. So she runs those committee. The executive committee I'm the chair of that committee. And given that we want to have more, pardon? Oh, each chair of the committees will join that group. So that means that Linda Ben Bradley and Jeff Hawkins, who's our BPL fund, will also be members of that committee. But we're going to do something different. We're going to, under that, we're going to form subcommittees. One of the key things that we need to do this year is to really think about strategic plan. Where are we going? That's the role of the trustees, is to determine the future. The urban libraries, as you know, we play a vital role in the city. I mean, you've heard the mayor has been here 3 times. She's going to be on she's here this afternoon at the BUR studio. But she really talks about the fact that this library and libraries, in the words of Oliver Wendell Holmes, is not only just to bring the history to life, but to be a vibrant place in this community. Again, to be a destination, to be a place that's equitable and fair. So Trustee Christian Westra has agreed to take on that responsibility, and in formation are some ideas about the strategic planning direction. And I've asked him just to say a little bit and introduce himself under that context.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Douglas. It's a real privilege to be asked to do this, and I'm thrilled to be helping to forge a strategic plan in consultation with my fellow trustees and other stakeholders. I think there's just so much opportunity here at the library, and I think the last time this was done formally was quite a while ago, probably over 10 years ago. So it seems like it's well timed to reconsider exactly what we should be focusing on and how we should be driving that forward. So I'm delighted to have the role and look forward to consulting with everyone on it. Thank you.
Thank you. So the key word is information, your input, all the trustees' input, as well as all of our key stakeholders, is going to be critical to begin to think about that. So before I move on, I'm just wondering, are there any questions or discussion about the committees and the committee structure? Okay, so now to our fabulous president, David Lennon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move to the president's report at this point. And there are 5 main topics that I want to go over. We do have some vote business to take care of later in the meeting, and it was important to dedicate, I think, the early part of the meeting to the chair's overview and vision for how we move forward. I would want to note that we as staff welcome the trustees as their ambassadors of the overall library. And so I think we all look forward to working with you in the various committees and activities that will generate in the coming years. I would note that in many cases, I think this is about lifting up work that our staff already do throughout the system, as opposed to it only being about new things to do or new ways of engaging. I think there will be some of that, and we look forward to that dialogue. I think that this dovetails nicely with the beginnings of the strategic planning work that Christian has indicated will be beginning as well. So I do think many of these themes will come together and will become manageable, as opposed to looking at this list and saying, oh my God, that's a lot of work that we all have to do together, either as trustees or as committee members or as staff. So I look forward to looking at the opportunities to indeed amplify what we're already doing and building on that. So that's certainly very encouraging to see the trustees take on that formal role with such endorsement. I do want to note that today's meeting is an experiment in being back in person. We're delivering this as a hybrid meeting. And so I think we will want some feedback around this. We have obligations to meet in terms of open meeting law and public records that will continue to meet. But as committees meet or as the board meets, there may be a mixture of in-person, online only, or indeed full hybrid that we may want to choose as we look at the schedules going forward. It does take a village to pull off a hybrid meeting, and I think, as I said to a couple of you, it takes more than twice the amount of work to do a hybrid meeting well as it does to do online only or in person only. But we have obligations, and we look forward to your feedback and patience as we relearn how to do this together. Before I get into my five main updates, I do want to acknowledge that the library lost a longtime friend earlier this year, and that was David Vieira, who served as president of the Citywide Friends for several years, was deeply involved with the Hyde Park Friends, and probably the most frequent attendee as a member of the public at trustee meetings over the last several years. I'm sure he would not mind me saying that he was often a critic of our work, but always done with the best of intentions and done with making the library the best it could possibly be to serve all of the people of Boston. And I want to acknowledge that Vice Chair Evelyn Arana Ortiz and our clerk Pamela Carver did attend the memorial for him. I don't know if there's anything, Evelyn, you would like to add just to recognize his passing.
Yeah, so thank you for mentioning David. I have to say, by being the longest trustee member here, did have a lot of exchange with him. He was always, and I did mention this in the memorial, he was a critic. Yes, it was with the best intentions, but always brought a solution to the table. And that is the thing that I like the most. He didn't just criticize for the sake of criticizing. He wanted to see, he was a fervent advocate of the library, and he just was always raising the bar, and that was the intent. So I was privileged to attend. I was able to speak. Always will remember David. He attended every meeting that I hosted, and always had a public comment, and always with the best intent of making this library a better place.
Thank you. And so I'll begin with just a recap of some recent highlights since we last met in May. And you can follow along with the slides. These are the more colorful slides that are presented for your edification and to give members of the public a sense of what has been going on. We've already mentioned the special collections reopening, which was a major effort and represents a solution to a problem that occurred 7 years ago with a mold outbreak. The project itself was at least 5 years in its work, and we had an incredible ribbon cutting and series of celebratory events. Thanks to funding from both the BPL Fund and the associates, we are well staffed and have several projects now to begin the work of unpacking and engaging with these wonderful collections. The space itself is the home to the Rare Books and Manuscripts Department, but all of Special Collections is served out of the new space, which includes the exhibition space in the lobby, the reading room, the first ever classroom, a state-of-the-art preservation lab, as well as tens of thousands of storage space that is properly environmentally controlled now. I also want to call out the incredible communications job that happened around the reopening, which was truly multifaceted. Daily, weekly, radio, TV, a full color feature in the Boston Globe idea section, and somehow Boston Magazine decided to include a profile of me in the context of this as well, but we won't dwell on that. And then particular amplification across all of social media during this. So it takes a village. The Special Collections team, which now numbers over 20, was at the heart of this, but it really did take the entire staff to pull this off with all of your support. The second idea, which I will draw your attention to, is this: as someone who likes to travel frequently, I'm no stranger to using a passport, but we now have this wonderful booklet which serves as your passport to all of the locations. We are 26 public service locations. There are 25 branches and the central library. The other is the Archival Center in West Roxbury, which is currently not doing direct service to to the public. And we have 23 locations, 23 of our branches are fully open their hours right now. The Faneuil branch is closed for construction, and I'll comment on the South End branch in a little bit more. So sometimes you'll see us use different numbers to talk about the number of branches or locations, but that's the overview. And we had a launch several weeks ago with a one-day program called Book It Around Boston, where we invited over 80 people came, I think it was, maybe it was close to 100 by the end of the day, to run, walk, bike around a series of branches, including some of our staff who are runners or walkers, visited this. And this was an idea by Maggie Levine, supported by Kate Procession, and several others joined in as well to make this a reality. And it's been incredibly popular so far. So you get your passport at your first stop, and then you get it stamped at the next branch, and then you go to the next one. So it's not only is it a way of visiting all of the branches, but it's a way of discovering the city as well. And so we love that that concept. This was launched as part of September's Library Card Sign Up Month. So Library Card Sign Up Month, passport program. I think we're almost out actually as we reach the end of the month. So it's been incredibly popular so far. So it's a program we hope we'll be able to do again next year. The first wave of funding came in from the BPL fund to produce the printing costs, and it's been very popular already. So.
David, I was just going to ask you do have an opportunity to get stamps at every branch. So like a real passport. You can
Absolutely.
stamp it.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. And not at the first one where you get the passport,
Right.
but everyone
Yeah,
after
we can do
that.
that.
So
Great.
there are some rules.
Okay.
And then there are prizes as well. So I think it's, if you get to 5, it's a water bottle. Apparently the notes are behind me, so that's great. Water bottle, t-shirt, and then there's a medal if you get to all 26 locations. Irony about the 26, but 26 miles from the marathon. So 5 medals already have been given out. Amazing. And not to people like myself who are able to go to all of the branches all the time. Often. Great. Next highlight, also adult summer reading. Again, a great effort by staff promoting summer reading through this bingo card that it's a physical and digital copy that you can use, and it gives you tasks, and if you complete them all, you can be in the running for a draw. And Christina Jones, one of our branch staff members, signed up 192 people for this program herself. It's the second year in a row she has actually been the highest. There's a trophy for doing this, so it's really a great way of engaging staff and the public in this work. Our book lists, which are themed, continue to be incredibly popular. And we're in the process of bringing Native Lives, Native Stories back for its second year with new content. Just wanted to highlight that quickly. What I'm particularly thrilled to see, and I just learned about this as this was happening, that we now have an archive of our own equity themed book lists going back over 40 years, and that's now available or about to be available on the website and through the Internet Archive. So sometimes we don't always follow our own rules around documentation and archiving, so it's really great to be able to celebrate this and see that we are actually archiving our own work as well.
And what I love about this is that the books that we showcase they're leading authors and leading ideas. So we're many times, if you take a look at what the other libraries are showing, we really have great books.
The last highlight that I want to point out today was the second ever all staff professional development day, which we held on September 23rd, just 2 weeks ago. Where we closed the whole system for a day. And actually, it's the first time we've ever done that. We closed for a half day the last time. We began this process November of 2019. Something we want to do every 1, 2, or 3 years. We haven't quite worked out the cadence. Professional development is an essential work of our support of staff, and having a day for people to gather, to engage in training and professional development opportunities is truly amazing. And we were thrilled to be joined by Mayor Wu, Human Services Chief Jose Masso, and Chair Priscilla Douglas to offer opening words. So it's just an incredible sight to see over 400 staff members who normally would never be able to gather together assembled in one place. And so we're thrilled to be able to do that. And then actually there was one more highlight, which was just to recall the Equity Weddings program, where I think we all know that the enterprise revenue that our events team brings in throughout the year is an essential stream that supports many programs and activities that are not covered by other services. Much of that work comes from high-end weddings that we were able to hold here at the Central Library. Given free to all as part of our motto that Chair Douglas opened the meeting with today, we've done a couple of different ways of making the ability to get married at the Central Library a more accessible opportunity. And so the events team put together these 1 hour, $200 wedding ceremonies, which can happen on a Monday at the Central Library. And we did several of those. They were sold out within days of the first announcement. And so I'm not sure how many we've done so far in total, but it's been very, very successful. We've done over 60 of these since the program was launched. So another way of democratizing our work and our role in society. I will now just go over the other challenges that we have. So items B, C, and D from my report. The single biggest challenge that the library has right now continues to be the number of vacancies that are active. We're at between 50 and 60 active full-time vacancies right now. So if any of you who work in large environments, and this is not unique to either our department as a city department or our sector, if you looked around and suddenly you had 20% less of your staff in your office, that's what it feels like across the system day to day. We are very active. This is the top operational priority for the library, is to continue to work at getting those numbers down. We have been hiring. We had about 43 individuals at the staff meeting who had joined over the course of the last year and a half. We have seen a large number of existing staff, be able to take promotional opportunities across the system. So there is good news beneath the surface here, but it remains the single largest factor that is preventing us from being all that we can be. And that does have an impact on morale. I would be remiss in not noticing that. So despite all of those great things that I reported on over the last 5 minutes, there are still serious underlying challenges. The South End branch had a catastrophic facilities failure earlier at the end of April, beginning of May. The branch remains closed, pretty much due to a water leak. All of the systems in the basement, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, completely destroyed. In a world where right now there are supply chain issues, there are labor shortages, and there are high demands on the type of firms that can do this work, this is going much more slowly than we would have liked, and is also going to be much more expensive than we would have thought. We also, because it's so catastrophic, have to do a redesign and bring things up to code, which adds further complexity to the challenge. We're currently reviewing the design plans and costs with our city colleagues. we will be doing a meeting with South End community leaders within the next week or two. And then we will follow with a formal update to the community on what the options are. But we are looking on the current timeline of at least a year of closure, which means I think we have to seriously consider the implications of that. This was one branch that was targeted and still is targeted for programming study and redesign and renovation. So we need to look at all of this again. I want to put this on the record as, you know, from a service to all of our communities and all of our branches, a serious problem.
Okay, but I was just going to ask, since, you know, sometimes a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, as people say, is this an opportunity to upgrade the physical plant and reconsider programming now that this event was sort of forced upon us?
Yeah, thank you, Ram Emanuel, for that quote. We thought initially, you know, even if it was going to look like 6 to 8 months of closure and then reopen, that it was better to proceed with the repairs. Maybe not do complete state of the art, full green on standards, because we would know there would be a renovation coming. I think in light of the recent information that just occurred last week, we should relook with the city and the community at what is the opportunity. We are aware that the Public Facilities Department has limited capacity to support new projects, but at the same time, you know, we're in dialogue about whether we can restack those priorities.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, you know, and again, I realize, you know, the operational and budgetary constraints, but it would seem to me that in a perfect world, you would use this opportunity to do what you needed to do rather than sort of put a Band-Aid on the problems and then close the branch again in a few years for more comprehensive changes. But
Yeah.
I realize that that may be wishful thinking.
Well, just the alternative. Normally, we do a year-long programming study. Design takes a year, and then construction could be 12 to 18 months. So when the alternative was, you know, 6-month closure versus a 2-year, 2.5-year closure, 3-year closure, that's one calculus. But now looking at a year plus closure versus maybe an accelerated, I think we're just going to take another look at all of those variables.
And you may be able to condense some of the programming and design schedules. So you're not looking at a year for programming, for example, maybe it's 9 months or something. And,
Perhaps.
you know, you could, again, wishful thinking perhaps, but I just throw it out there to consider.
Yeah, I agree. I've personally learned every time I think we can make something go faster or happen in parallel, I learned that there are good reasons that we can't. But now that we have new information as of last week about the costs and timeline, now is the time to just reopen the question rather than proceed down a path that we thought was based upon different assumptions.
Thank you.
Dave, you talked about a planned meeting to discuss what's going on with the branch with the community leaders. Is there going to be any kind of forum or vehicle through which people who aren't community leaders but are members of the community can be informed about what's going on?
So we expect that they will ask for a full community meeting, and we're perfectly prepared and happy to do that. But because several community leaders asked for a group update first, we're being responsive in consultation with several elected officials and the mayor's office about this group asked for a more detailed update. We'll do that with them. I believe that the community as a whole should have this information as well. So I think the right thing is to do a sequence of 2 meetings, but we'll validate that approach with our colleagues.
David, on the 60 vacancies, is that a residual effect of COVID, or what's the primary reason for that?
It's multiple factors. There was a hiring freeze during COVID. That was what enabled us to get through the whole period without furloughs or layoffs or other challenges that libraries across the state and across the country had to deal with. So there is one residual effect was just catching up with the hiring freeze. The second factor, I think, is we did see a larger number of retirements and resignations as we return to full in-person service, because our work up until recently did not allow for any remote work or hybrid support for the workforce. And so I think for those that had other choices, which is certainly not everybody. For some people who had other choices or had changes in their family circumstances, that triggered a decision for them to seek employment elsewhere. And I think the third factor remains the hiring challenges, which include the approval process to get a vacancy posted and out there. To be honest, I think many of the lower level positions, the pay scales are challenging to make work in a city where the cost of living is what it is. The inflationary pressures that are on, whatever your economic or political position on that might be. And the fact that there is a residency requirement for every city employee, and every library employee is a city employee. So that set of factors, despite the really hard work of our HR team and our finance team at just taking every single vacancy and just managing it through the process, the combination of those factors is that we're not as far along as I thought we are. We're down from the 90 openings we had in July of 21. Summer was a slightly slower time in making progress in that front.
Are we allowing some hybrid now?
So there's a new city policy, which as applied to the library, allows those who are eligible because of their work type to work with approval up to 1 or 2 days a week from a primary from their home location. That does not apply to everybody. A lot of we can't take the books home and shelve them and bring them back the next day. There is fewer jobs than you would think that are actually eligible to take account of that. We're in dialogue with both of our unions about ensuring that, if someone is taking a online training course, for example, that might be work that they could do from home if they have the equipment, just as one example of trying to introduce additional flexibility. But this is a 6-month pilot approved by the city. It's pretty tightly constrained to, if your job allows it, and you have approval, you can work up to 1 or 2 days a week remotely. We've invited, and I did this at the all staff day as well, suggestions about what are the alternate flexibility types that would make a difference to staff. Because even if we can't do it during this pilot, there may be other ways that we can continue this flex. It's really about ultimate flexibility, I think, and I'm hyper aware that there are inequities in those who are eligible to take full advantage of this and those that are not.
David, can I ask a question with regards to vacancies? Obviously, every vacancy you have are of importance for the organization. Do we have folks in the pipeline for these jobs, or are we at 0 with every vacancy?
So no, these 60 are at various stages of the approval and posting process. Some are going through our own HR, some are going through city HR approval, some are posted and we're interviewing for. I would say the largest number of the 60 are actually interviewing in selection stage. The positions span the spectrum. They are laborers, they are carpenters, they are AV staff, they are event staff, the director of operations role. They are really across the board, both people who need to have a library degree and those who do not. So librarians and library staff members generally. I'll be brief on my last 2 updates so we can get to the other business of the meeting. With respect to our roadmap and needs for strategic planning, this is really, I think, a footnote to Chair Douglas and Subcommittee Chair Westra's thoughts on strategic planning. The strategic planning process that we last did fully was issued in the Compass strategic plan, that document that many of you will have read and seen, which dates to 2012. We have a short-term roadmap document that runs 2019 to 24. So we have a 5-year roadmap that identifies our current priorities. We believe that by the time we get to 24, we need to have the next governing document that will guide the library at the strategic level for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the committee and the work decides. And so we look forward to scoping that and beginning the process. And then just a note that we will follow this meeting with a review of all of the ways trustees can stay up to date on what's happening at the library. I believe you all should be receiving the staff newsletter on a weekly basis. There is a newsletter that goes to patrons, which tells you everything that's going on publicly. And then there are a number of other signups that you can do for topic-based interests, such as adult reading, children's and youth programming. So we'll be recapping all of that because in your role as ambassadors, you will want to know and be a little closer to everything that's happening and choose what events to come and support, for example, or to be aware of. On the next slide, we have the proposed topics for future board meetings. And I'm happy to share that at Chair Douglas's suggestion, we've secured 2 guests for both the January and March meetings from other leading urban public libraries around the country. So we'll be able to be a little informed about what's happening in other parts of the country as well as we go into our ongoing discussions about engagement and our strategic planning process. The other topics that we're proposing to report on, and we would like your guidance as to whether these are topics for a full board meeting or best done at executive committee. An update on our collections usage, the patterns and metrics that we are currently seeing. Updates on library services, the initiatives and metrics that we're seeing there. And an update on the equity and outreach metrics. When we introduced the equity program last year, you all had asked that on twice a year we report to the trustees on progress on that front. And so we would like to make sure that's included in the sequencing of topics for future meetings. And then finally, technology, digital services and engagements. So I think in the interest of time, unless the chair would like to take comment, we could take short comments and then take input afterwards as well.
I'd like to take a short comment if somebody, so these are proposed topics and one of the things we want these meetings to be, keep you informed, up to date, make certain that our conversations here are relevant and actionable so that you can fulfill your role as ambassadors and also as stewards of the museum. So take a look at this. You can feedback to, if you have a comment now, or please talk to me or David later. All right, we'll move on. Thank you.
That completes the president's report. And we will now move, I think, Madam Chair, to the 2 formal votes and then report of the finance and audit, or am I wrong? Yeah. The 2 votes are actually part of my report. So the first vote relates to renewal and extension of the contract at the North End branch for space adjacent, which is under a lease agreement with the restaurant El Panino. This is a vote to simply extend that that agreement. And I just want to recognize we have in the audience our newly signed corporation counsel from the city of Boston, Jacqueline Munson. Hi, Jacqueline. So if we have questions that are of a directly legal matter, we can engage with her.
Okay, so can I get a formal, can I get a motion to approve this?
Second.
So moved.
So moved,
I-
moved and
well, just
seconded
one-
that the-
Sorry, second.
that the
I
trustees,
just have one question. It says we're
Yeah.
extending it. Doesn't say for how long.
It's a 5-year renewal.
Okay, thank you.
so the motion has been first seconded and that the trustees of the public library, the city of Boston vote to approve an extension to the 2017 lease agreement for the North End branch and El Panino. We'll take again, a designation by raise of hand. Any opposed? Approved? Is that abstention?
No, it's approved.
Okay,
But maybe we want to edit, I mean, just add what you're
Yeah.
saying in terms of the 5 years. That would be good for the notes.
thank you.
Yep.
So the motion, it's been passed, it's been approved.
Item G pertains to the West End branch. We are not legally required to take a vote on this topic, but given the strategic direction that we're moving in, I thought it appropriate to bring this before the trustees. You heard earlier about the library's engagement in the topic of housing more broadly within the city of Boston. We have been in collaboration with city agencies under the Housing with Public Assets program. We have already 2 branch locations which are moving forward under this program, and that is the development of a new site for a new Chinatown branch library, as well as the new site for a new Upham's Corner branch library, both of which are envisioned to be a development of the site with library on the first and second floor, with housing and possibly other services above. The third project that we want to move forward and has large community and neighborhood support, as well as city support, is for the redevelopment of the existing site of the West End branch library along the same lines. And so this vote basically calls for your approval to support that work and to authorize the administration to proceed in collaboration with city agencies to see that project move forward.
So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve this West End branch. The trustees for the collaboration with the mayor's office of housing and agencies as needed. Motion?
So moved.
Second, thank you. Any discussion?
Quick question, if I may. David, how are we engaged in how those libraries will look like, for instance, in this West End?
So
Complex.
in this particular case, it will be the mayor's office of housing that will be the lead agency seeking a integrated, basically an integrated RFP. Developers will come to the table, presumably. This has been a popular location. We will have a seat on the review process for the approval process. A selection will be made, and then for the design of the interior and the overall look, the library will follow its normal renovation process. So just as I mentioned previously in the conversation around the South End branch, normally we do a programming study, then we do design, and then we do construction. We have already done the programming study for the West End branch, which we did with the community led by an architecture firm. That highly supported this particular direction to do it under the guidance of Housing with Public Assets. And then at the appropriate time during the overall site development process, our design process comes back into play so that we're designing a new library within the overall development. And as our PMO program manager, Allison Ford, tells me, having our architect for the design and the developer's architect for the overall development on board at the same time is a crucial step to ensure that everything is integrated.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Thank you. So I'm calling for the vote that the trustees of the public library in the city of Boston authorize the president of the library to collaborate with the mayor's office of housing and other agencies as needed. Could you signal by hands your approval? Okay, no, okay. That's vote is approved fully. Thank you. I just want to say relative to this and to build on Jose's comment, Joe Berman and I participated online for the West End review by it's very, very exciting to see those plans and the details and the engagement. And I think you can find that on YouTube. All right, let me turn it over to okay, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Wooten, and thank you, Linda. Thank you, Christina Forey. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to the Finance and Audit Committee, Evelyn Rayner Ortiz and Ellen Donahue.
Okay, so before I start, I know you're all wondering why I have a trophy, and that's because I'm special. No. I'm always special. So, no, actually, without joke, Jane, I want to thank you. This is a golf ball. Jane organized, apparently you guys do it yearly, maybe? But this is the first time I participate. There's a golf tournament that happens it's called the Bookies Golf Tournament, organized by Jane at the historical William Devine Golf Course in Franklin Park. And there was a number of teams that participated. Ellen was my fearless leader. I did not do the 18 holes. I just want to say that. I did not have all the time, but I did 5, but the team won. So congratulations, my team won. That's why I get to have the trophy for a year. And then next year we'll play again. And if I don't win, I have to turn it over. There was all kinds of skills, people who never played before, people who played, people who had 350 yards, but they never said it was centered. So it was a lot of fun. I had a blast. Thank you for having me. And this is why I have a trophy. First item, I'm going to be talking for a bit. So the next item, and I'm going to have Ellen talk, we have catering service. We had an RFP for that process. And then so Ellen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Evelyn. So a little bit of background that we also provided to Finance and Audit 2 weeks ago, and then a clarification of a statement I made during that meeting. We went out to bid. I think this is the 4th time we've bid this contract. We had a 6-person team reviewing the proposals. We had 2 vendors who applied, Gourmet Catering and TCA, the Catered Affair, the incumbent. When we met 2 weeks ago, I told the trustees that TCA had been awarded the most points, 557, and Gourmet the second, 544. And so we were recommending TCA. I did at that meeting want to call out that while they didn't win, Gourmet did score the highest on the diversity, equity, and inclusion portion. They had a very good presentation at the open house, not the open house, the interview and the tasting we went to with them. They came in with 2 partners, Community Kitchen and City Fresh. And many members of those organizations or many individual businesses that they represent were there. TCA also had a serious and substantive proposal. And in reviewing it, I did say that Gourmet had a partnership with City Fresh. TCA, however, while they had told us that they worked with vendors they identified through Community Kitchen, I said they both worked with Community Kitchen. That was somewhat imprecise on my part. TCA identifies vendors through Community Kitchen. Gourmet has a partnership with them. That said, it was still a very serious proposal with a way to identify vendors to come in, have their food in the kitchen, have their foods at special events. They have a proposal where they would have small restaurants take over quarterly the tea lounge to get some experience in running a business. TCA would support them in doing that. They have executive training programs with full scholarships. And they are also adding to their preferred vendor list. This is a list when folks come in and they're going to have a wedding, they want to identify florists, they want to identify photographers, and TCA has preferred vendor list. So they're going to work to increase the diversity of those lists. They have also hired, this program that they have is called Community Table, and they have hired someone to focus on it exclusively as opposed to having different people help try to run it. So I wanted to clarify that statement. That said, TCA had a terrific proposal. They have been a great partner to us, and we have recommended to the Finance and Audit Committee that they approve that, and now we bring it before you folks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ellen. Any questions?
There be any accountability measures in place to make sure that they do adhere to?
Linda and I had a conversation about that Friday and got some good advice from her as well. Yes, there will be absolutely metrics. And we will talk to them. We haven't engaged in too many conversations with them since the finance and audit vote because we don't want to assume that we're going to get full approval from you folks. So we've had a couple of initial conversations, but there will absolutely be metrics and reporting in the contract.
Any more questions? All right, so we'll take it for a vote. So can I please get any abstentions? No abstentions. All right, so everybody approved? Please raise your hand. Oh, no, I need to do motions first. That's why you're looking at me strange. He's like, no, you're not doing this correctly. Can I please get a motion? Second. All right, all in favor. That's why he felt strange. All right, all in favor? All right, okay, approved. All right, next item is the financial statements, and I'm gonna keep it brief because I know this is boring. There were no, you have received copy of the audited financials. There was clean opinion, no material misstatements in the financials. There was a loss of income. You probably all experienced with the investment income of $10 million. Well, you didn't lose that much money, but we did. And that, you know, we did have a big gain in 2022 overall for fiscal year 22 of 20 million, but we had a loss this year. Then for the general fund, there was a decrease of 100K. And there is, let's say, that, and an increase, and there was a healthy target for the honest, they call the unassigned of 12%. Usually you keep it between 8 to 16, and we hit 12.6, which is a healthy position. One thing that it's new on the audited financials, and Sean gonna probably, if there's any questions, have you come in? It's GASP 87. It's a new statement that has been added to the financial statements, that it's around leases. This is new. So there was a lot of learning, not only from us, but also from the auditors as we, you know, we start looking at how to implement it and have some of best practices. They did poke around a lot, see there were no material findings. So we have a clean bill of health for our financials. Any questions around that? And I just want to clarify for the new trustees, this is only for the assets that we manage as trustees. That's what these financial statements are for. All right, so I'm going to ask for a motion. Second. All right, any discussion, any questions? No? All right, so can I get a vote? All in favor? Is it all? Oh, unanimous. Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, do you want to do a quick, do you want me to do, there's a document about donations?
Sure. The donation report we present every fall to the trustees. By way of a little bit of background, not too many years ago, the staff could not accept a donation without trustee approval. We meet 5 times a year. That caused a lot of checks to be backed up. So what the decision was that we would accept checks as they came, but we would report to the trustees once a year. This has changed a little bit with the new management of the fund for the Boston Public Library. They have asked that most donations go directly to them. So we do still have some smaller ones here, but the majority of our donations are now going to the fund. And if you get the fund's report, you'll see that those folks are acknowledged in their annual report. So the biggest contributions are from the friends, from the fund, from the Boston Public Library, the associates, and then citywide friends. From the fund, it is a lot of youth staffing, a lot of programming, homework help, senior programming, the low lecture series, the concerts in the courtyard, and a number of other matters. From the associates, as you know, is mostly focused on or exclusively focused on special collections, both staffing and digitization and that sort of thing. The citywide friends, this year, oftentimes we get more from them, but we've been closed. We haven't had that many book sales, and unfortunately, we've had a change in leadership there. But that paid for the reading prizes and other prizes and the museum passes, some museum passes. Then we get the distribution from the trustees and some donations directly to us. The marathon donation, as everyone knows, we have a team. We are now recruiting for a team. So if you know any runners who would like to run for the Boston Public Library, please send them our way. We have the estate of Robert Shistic, who gave a donation a few years back in his mother's name to establish an endowment. And this is the final settlement of his will, adding $35,000 to that endowment. Dorothy Alcott endowment is exclusively for the use of Uppins. She worked there. Her daughter every year donates to increase the endowment she established for her mother. And then just the donations and a small gift from the Zabin Charitable Trust, and then a number of smaller donations, the in-kind donations for the Red Sox, are the tickets to Read Your Way to Fenway that we get every year.
Great, thank you. And then I want to publicly appreciate everybody who donated. There's very generous donations this last year, so thank you so much. All right, next on the agenda, I move on to my next committee, the Fellows Athenaeum. Just want to give a little bit of, thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Ellen.
Just want to give a little bit of background to those who are not familiar with the committee. This is a committee that manages the assets at the Fellows Athenaeum that was incorporated, are you ready for this? 1866. And they donated all their assets upon closing to the Boston Public Library in 1974 with the purpose of providing literary and instructive programs at Roxbury branch only. The committee was created in 2004. It oversees the expenditures of this fund. And every year we initiate a request for proposals that we receive, review, and approve of such programming. This year we approved 21 grants proposals for a total of $115,000. Those programs you'll see on your presentation, they go from the arts to instruction to health and well-being, cooking classes. Most important, this was added starting last year, empowerment. So going beyond the bars. Thank you to Representative Tyler, who is also part of the committee and requested this as one of the programs that we need to look after. And then know your rights when interacting the police and law enforcement. So we have a project manager who manages these programs and the success of them. And as you can see, the audience varies from families to youth, adults, and seniors. So a lot of programs, very exciting for the Roxbury branch. And then you'll see it, I'm not gonna go through all of them, but you'll see all the detailed programs in the presentation here. And with that, if there's no questions, I'll pass it on to the chair. So
thank you so much, Evelyn, for your work on both of these committees and also for the leadership in this area and the contribution to making certain that the Fellows Athenaeum Trust meets its goal and mandate. In terms of new business, just very quickly, I'm always delighted to see what our trustees accomplish. And Jabari Asim has been named the distinguished, I have to read this, Distinguished Professor of Multidisciplinary Letters at Emerson College. So the new designation honors his distinguished contributions to the institution and society as a prolific author, thought leader, cultural and literary critic, teacher, and mentor. Thank you, Jabari. We will move now to public comment.
We only have three and they're on Zoom, so with Jay's cooperation, we'll open their mics. Jay has the list. The first, there is none in person. The first is Pamela Bush Miles. Jay, can you open her microphone? Ms. Miles, you will have 2 minutes to speak, and then we will need to move on to the next person. Are you there? Ms. Miles, are you there? Jay? I think he's working on it. It's even moving. Let's give him a minute. She's muted. I need you to unmute Ms. Miles.
Hello?
Here we go. You have 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Mela Bush Miles, and I am a resident of Roxbury. My family's been in Boston since 1901, and I was raised in Roxbury. I'm here to comment today about the Roxbury Branch Library naming. And my recommendation is that it should be consistent with the name of the location. For wayfinding purposes, Nubian Branch Public Library would be the appropriate. The city of Boston has adopted Nubian as the name of the area and the location of this branch of the library. Why it was named Roxbury when there are other branches of the library in Roxbury don't make sense to me. But we voted during an election phase to actually name the area Nubian, to change the bus station name, and to not to honor and lift up the person who signed Governor Dudley, who actually enacted slavery in the city of Boston. So we didn't want it to continue to be Dudley. That's why we wanted a name change on the library, and it's my recommendation. My full government name is Pamela Bush Miles, and it's my recommendation that we come back and consider the will for diversity and equity and inclusion, the will of the people in Roxbury, who I live 4 blocks away from this branch, and I got my first library book from this branch after I learned how to sign my name at 3.5. And so I would like for it to become the Nubian Branch Library, and for you to take this up as a vote before the trustees of the public library. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miles, for your comment. I just want to let you know that we, the trustees, refer to this library as the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library at Nubian Square. This issue was considered by the trustees. The mayors and administration have been fully briefed on this, and we consider this to be a closed matter. We're supportive. We really pleased that you love the library and continue to support it. And the library with the designation Boston Public Library at Nubian Square is always included. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Alyssa Cadilla. Alyssa, are you there? Are you there? Jay, is she available?
Nope. Shaking his head.
If she's not, then we will go on to Jamada Smith.
Yes, thank you very much. I love the Boston Public Library, and ever since a little girl, I grew up on Humboldt Avenue in Townsend, and I would dash up the stairs to my library on Townsend Street, which was between the then Roxbury Memorial High School for girls and the Roxbury Memorial High School for boys. And boy, what a joy. Don't let it be Negro History Week. I say this because community feel is real. And we're not afraid to honor the Chinatown branch of the Boston Public Library. And so this is a plea and a fervent prayer to make Nubian Square Library the Nubian branch of the Boston Public Library. This year, I saw former trustee member Joyce Linningham, and she was at an event outside of the Nubian Library. And she asked me, she said, "Are you still making good trouble?" And so one of my professors used to say that sometimes it's not enough for things to be right, they have to look right. And what I'm asking, based on what was just said earlier, I think by Madam Chair, please consider to reopen your decision and do what is right and good. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. That concludes.
Thank you very much for your public comment and your care and compassion and engagement with the library. There being no further business, may I entertain a motion to adjourn? Second it, all in favor? Unanimous. And I can gavel us out. Thank you, thank you.